Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It's 10 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Tuesday night, March the 8th. I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room is open, and if anybody would like to sit in there, you're more than welcome to. I usually pop the links into there to what I'm talking about. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. I moved my shows to Tuesdays and Thursdays only for now, and the weekend shows. And that's just to give myself a break. I caught a really bad cold. It turned into a chest infection. I got really sick. I had to take a whole bunch of time off from work. And couldn't get rid of it. So I'm on with for my shows because I Dreamcatchers Talk Radio here as well Monday through Friday evenings, and so cut my shows out. So yes, I had it kind of gives everybody a break too from having me. I know I have so many people who tune in. Thank you so much for and it wouldn't make any sense for me to be doing these shows if nobody was listening. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in to the show. I know lots of people tune in all the time, and it's a lot of work keeping up with my shows. And so it's hard for me to do it, so I know it must be hard for everybody else. Thank you so much for taking the time with me on this quest to stop child abuse and adult survivors and whatnot. So support. Tonight, I want to make a quick announcement, and this is an announcement on the other night about the program I've got tomorrow night. Leah Horton joined me, and she is the founder of On One Accord Foundation, the On One Accord Foundation, OOAF, and she's going to join me tonight, my time, Mountain Standard Time. We're going to just chat about what she's doing, the organization, the Accord Foundation, and talk about the some reaching up, and really just talk about, the issues of incest and whatnot. They sent me a press release to do this coming. The original March. Having so many people sign up. It's taking place. They want to. They actually changed the date from March 18th to 23rd, so like a month to give survivors of a chance to get there, right? So it's just awesome. I'm going to read out this press release that was sent to me by Grady Fox, and Grady Fox is the people who works with Leah Horton on One Accord Foundation. Sent me this awesome release, and it says One Accord Foundation OOAF is introducing the first of many one-day retreats for adult survivors at the Del Mar. And the retreat features renowned speakers Dr. Robert Duffner, PhD, ABN, ABPP, and Dr. Liz, PhD. There will be the meditation, conversation, exercise classes, and a program on how to continue after by attendees. Errors can apply for one of many sponsorships which cover the price OOA on One Accord Foundation. So OOAF's goal on One Accord Foundation is to sponsor a project on a first-come basis. So deadline is April to apply. So I'm not sure what date that is, but I would apply rather quickly if it was me, because they can only afford. They guess they can only sponsor 10 heirs, right? 10 adult incest rape survivors. So, if you wanted to see if you can get sponsored to go out there, you should get a hold of them. The general cost is $250 for the entire retreat per person, normally. So that's what the general cost would be, $250 for the entire retreat. And that's in San Diego, April 23rd. Here, please contact us for lodging accommodations. All of the victims find ways to deal. Leah Horton, the founder and chairman of On One Accord Foundation, says it is important that we provide inspiration and resources to survivors to come together and explore the different types of healing techniques by providing some of the best clinicians to come and speak to our survivors, quote unquote. And this will be a safe environment for survivors to share their story and learn their the professionals and each other. And volunteers and interns are needed to help out at the end of the year. If you would like to attend or volunteer, contact the OAF, the funding, by email at info@foundation.org. And they said this grassroots organization and has several events lined up for 2011 to raise awareness and help survivors. And the foundation is accepting direct sponsorship for an monthly auction at www.biddingforgood.com, where proceeds go directly to the support of heirs, that's adult incest rape survivors, and the foundation. They said, please contact Grady Fox, Director of Community, oneacordfoundation.org to donate items for our auction. The new auction begins March 14th, 2011, and donations are also accepted at the foundation's website. So I'm sure we'll hear lots of this. We're going to hear from people joining us on the show. I can't wait to talk with her and speak to her. This will be the first time I've been able to speak. Everybody will be here tonight at 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going for an hour, and I think it's wonderful that she's coming on the show, and what Great Fox is doing, what all those people incest rape survivors, right? And so this is so good. I'm a survivor of incest myself, so I know, this is there's so many of us out there, and there are ways to get help. There is hope, and so there's people out here doing some amazing work, and they're survivors, and they're saying, hey, we can do this, you know what I mean? And it's very I don't know, it just warms my heart. I mean, people might say, oh, well, that's ridiculous, but it's true. It's a good feeling to know that there's so many people out there who are really working to help people, and wanting to see people heal, and to to learn to actually live and to enjoy this life, right? And so that's I hope you will join us. Lethea Horton tonight, March the 9th at 7:30 p.m. here, Mountain Standard Time. Check the page out, and information is actually listed on the show page. But tomorrow night you can come and get the. Here, I appreciate you being here. This is my tonight here, there. So I lost my playing back. And hopefully I'm still streaming and everybody can still hear me. Somehow, I don't know how it happens, but I did lose my switchboard. But we'll get right into this topic here. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I say this on every report for people to know that I'm the practice of shows. And of child abuse, and I also am Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, as well as the Chief Communications Officer for Canada and U.S. for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And so we're fighting to stop child abuse. This is what we're doing. We're all volunteers. We work incredibly hard in our spare time. There's so many people who volunteer with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children with this one common goal in mind, and that's to educate the public regarding the issues surrounding child abuse, the signs and symptoms, how to report it, child abuse prevention, talking about child abuse, getting it out here, breaking the silence, and really, help in any way that we can to help, if we can, you know what I mean, like anything that we can possibly do to get people information, or so, we're working really hard, and that I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, so we're continually looking at information, and I find all kinds of good information out here. I'm a therapist. Those at your discretion. The topics of abuse are very sensitive, and I just hope that everybody makes the right choice for yourself, right? Young people under the age of 18, I ask that you have someone listen to the show with you, who's older, and adult, a parent, someone to help you make the decision whether you should be listening or not. I say this to every show, and that's because I believe in protecting children, and children should know how to keep themselves safe online, and if they're, parents should learn how to keep their children safe online, and the children should know how to keep themselves safe online, and young adults as well, young people, right? It's so important. The FBI and ICAC and all these other groups are trying to bust all these child sexual predators and pedophiles who are online trying to get a hold of children. But for every one they bust, there's another 600 behind them coming up, see? And so it's horrific. You don't want your child to be a victim of a child sexual predator or pedophile. Learn how to keep your children safe. It's so important. So I say this on every show because it's what I believe in, protecting children, right? So we're going to get right into this topic. And this particular topic, we were talking about this on Thursday night, last Thursday night, dealing with child sexual abuse and child sexual predators and pedophiles, right? And so this particular article is called Sexual Abuse and Trauma. It's from allaboutcounseling.com. And that is www.allaboutcounseling.com. And so I'm kind of just running on a theme here because we had Keith Smith join the show here. Smith about on Dreamcatcher Talk Radio about he's a victim of a stranger sexual assault by a stranger who abducted him just happened at the wrong time, and this stranger got a hold of him, and when he was 14 years old, and he was a sexual predator, and he was a pedophile, already been done time for abusing children, and he had gotten out of prison, and he got a hold of Keith Smith. Thank God Keith Smith survived and lived. He was taken to the woods, but got away. So he was able to point out, he actually got the information from different information, whatever he got, to be able to nail the guy. So the guy actually, the police as the guy who was Smith's attacker and rapist, right? But before he could go to prison to serve time for the crime against Smith, this guy was murdered. So he's been in my town, and we were talking about the whole issue of child sexual abuse, and so I'm kind of continuing on with that, right? And child sexual predators, pedophiles, and whatnot, sort of going in that direction. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And so I'll pop into the chat room, a particular article about counseling.com, and just read it and sort of, see what they had to say about it. This is called sexual. Questions like can a child abuser? How can I identify if someone might be an abuser, and what are some identifying features? And why do people sexually abuse children? These are questions that people ask. And they said many people have a limited understanding of the causes, prevention, and impacts of childhood sexual abuse, probably because it's a taboo subject. These related topics. They go on to. There's a whole lot of links on this. Go check out www.htm. Rehabilitated, and they said here it depends on who the child molester is. The majority of molested children are perpetrated by most of these people are called incest perpetrators because they're family members to the children. It's been found for these individuals who get reported incest perpetrators is that they are likely. Oh, I think I lost the sound. So if anybody's out there, and Gypsy Witch, if you can hear me, if you want to a little note, that I had lost my sound. Now, you have to call back in. Streaming. Okay, well, I did lose the call. The call was dropped, so sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me now. And yeah, I went for a few shows with no problems with Skype or BTR or anything, but every now and then, right? It's just not a foolproof. Like it's just there's too much room for error with this system, but it's a great system, and I really appreciate Blog Talk Radio for what they do and for what this offers to the public, because there are some really informative shows and some awesome shows on Blog Talk Radio, and so it's a good medium. I really like it, but it's still it's just kind of sad because I'd say 1 out of 3 shows is there's something wrong with it. Shows, right? So I'm paying money to do this, and if it was a free show, I wouldn't feel so bad. But I'm pitching out quite a bit of money to do this, and so that's why it's kind of frustrating for me, because I'm paying to do this. So I always feel like it should be a little bit better because it's quite expensive, right? So anyway, I usually they're more likely to have incest perpetrators, right? Incest perpetrators, people who abuse family members, right? It's hard to measure whether they would abuse again at later times with other children. They're not considered what is clinically called a pedophile. Pedophiles are a different class of child molesters and are considered sexual addicts. In spite of their best interests, the pedophile will abuse children as long as there is opportunity. There are pedophiles who must drive different routes home just to avoid the temptation of children they might otherwise encounter. So they said the type of child molester most resistant to treatment is called a fixed pedophile. These people primarily abuse children of their own gender and across family lines, which is not the majority of sex abusers. We don't have a good record of stopping fixed pedophiles, they said here, from abusing again. In general, this is not the case with incest perpetrators, and most people who abuse will probably be able to stop if they are held accountable, punished appropriately, and also given the proper kind of therapeutic treatment. So, I personally don't know because I don't work with child sexual predators. I don't work with pedophiles, and I don't work with incest abusers, you know what I mean? So this is just what they're saying on allaboutcounseling.com. And I just know that I was sexually abused as a child. I did tell I talk about this on my morning show, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. I talk about this quite a bit. And it's because I told my mother about what was happening to me because I was in pain. And I told her, and she said, well, that's your problem, not mine. And she said, the only thing, this was just a quick conversation, she said, you're going to have to wrap yourself up like a mummy when you go to bed. That was her suggestion for me to stop the abuse, right? And I was 8 years old, right? I mean, and this was a sibling of mine. So, it's kind of sad that people would do that and just let the abuse continue, but that's what my mother did. And so, but my mother was my main abuser, so there you go, right? She did not care. So she didn't care what was happening to me. So there you go. She was my main abuser. So it's I just know from my own, what I went through, you know what I mean, like dealing with this and then not knowing how to say no. So some of my brother's friends were actually molesting me, and I didn't know enough that my body was my own, and I didn't know to say no because I was already being sexually abused by my sibling, by my brother, and being abused physically by both my parents and in every other way. So I just didn't know to say no. You know what I mean? And so, I didn't realize that I could say no. And I did, and obviously I went to my mother for help, and that didn't work. So then I felt that I just didn't have, this was just the way it was, Very sad, very sad. So many people are abused sexually. The stats out there are pretty much 1 in 3 to 4 girls, 1 in 6 to 7 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18, whether that's unwanted sexual touching, molestation, sexual exploitation, right, rape, you name it. And it's horrific. That's too many. There should never be one, and sadly enough, there's so many. So who are the people that are doing this stuff? These are just people that choose to abuse a child sexually, right? In whatever way that they choose. This is people in families, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, aunts and uncles, cousins, siblings, anyone. Anyone can be an abuser. Anyone can be a child sexual abuser. It's if they choose to do so. And a lot of people say, oh, it's not a choice, they're just sick and they're something mentally wrong. Well, to me, it seems like it has to be a choice. They wake up in the morning and they have no control, and they abuse children. That's when you actually get into and start looking into what abuse really is. It is all about control. And so what they are doing when an abuser is abusing someone, abuse is all about control. It's not about not having a control or losing control. It's about gaining control. And so society really needs to get some education. People need to get educated on what abuse really is and what the abusers are really doing when they're abusing. A lot of people think, oh, they didn't know what they were doing, and no, they really do know what they're doing. That's the sad part. And the fact is they say they can't stop. It's like an addiction for a lot of those child sexual predators and pedophiles who are just recidivists. They just can't stop. They just keep going, and they say, well, I can't stop. It's an addiction. It's like, well, there has to be some sort of, why should the child pay the price because that person can't stop doing what they're doing? And I'm not, whether it's a woman or a man, I don't care. Women sexually abuse children too. And so it's like, why should the child have to pay? Why should children have to pay the price because somebody can't stop what they're doing? To me, it just seems to me like that's, where's the children's rights in this, right? Where are these children's rights in this case? It's all about the pedophile. It's all about the perpetrator of the crime has more rights than the child does in every case. And so this is really sad and really pathetic, because it seems to me that if a person's going to hurt somebody, which is, people say, oh, child sexual abuse doesn't hurt. Well, I'll give you another story if you just want to talk to me for about 10 minutes. And then I can tell you what it did in my sex life after that for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. And I just, there's too many people that like to excuse away and minimize abuse of all types. They like to just minimize it, make it seem like it's no big deal. It's perfectly okay, it doesn't hurt the child. They've got it all wrong. They've got it all backwards, and all they have to do is talk to me and a few of my friends, and we'll have a little bit of a different story for you. So, there you go. But anyway, the whole issue is that where's the children's rights? We have these perpetrators of these crimes have more rights than the child does, always. And to me, this is my opinion only, but I think that they should just be given a pill. That just, if they're going to hurt and harm children, they should not be allowed to do that. So if they're not going to make them serve time in jail, just give them a pill that turns them into whatever, some sort of somebody who cannot harm children. You know what I mean? They're just like a zombie or something, right? Because why should a child have to pay because someone else can't control themselves? They say they can't control themselves. Oh, it's an addiction. To me, I think that is so incredibly wrong that society has to pay for that because somebody is so sick, that so mentally ill, but yet they have rights. They don't have to stop doing what they're doing. They're allowed to go ahead and continue to abuse and sexually use children because they have more rights than children do. Like this has always made me a little grumpy, and as you can tell tonight, I'm just a little bit grumpy about this. But it just makes me angry that children do have rights, but they're not upheld, and the perpetrators and the people that are out here, these criminals that are out here hurting children, have more rights than their victims, and that the victim has never had any rights. That's the whole issue, and as long as we don't speak out against it, it's never going to change. The laws have to change. And we all need to speak out against this because it's incredibly wrong. And I will argue with somebody about this until the cows come home because I've got nothing better to do with my time than fight for children's rights and stand up for what is wrong, stand up and say for what is right and stand up against what is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm fighting against child abuse because, like, I don't mind doing it. A lot of people are embarrassed by it. They don't want to say stop child abuse. It's embarrassing. They think, oh, well, what will people think of me if I say stop child abuse? It's like I have no problem shouting this out. You know what I mean? Because I was abused as a child, emotionally, psychologically, verbally. I was abused physically. I was abused sexually as a child. I was neglected as a child. So I went through the whole gamut, and I survived. Right. And the whole issue is that it's taken me my whole life to get my sanity back, to ever get my sanity. I was born into this mess. I was born into this home that was hell, right? So, it's taken me my whole life to be able to function as a normal person in society. You know what I mean? And it takes everything I've got to do it. And the issue, and this was not my fault. This was put on me by a bunch of people who chose to hurt me. My parents who chose to hurt me. They chose to hurt their children. They did that on purpose. It's not like somebody was holding a gun to their head saying, if you don't hurt your children, we're going to shoot you, right? They did this because they wanted to, out of the evil of their hearts, right? And it's the same as being sexually abused by a sibling. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like he chose to do that, And so it's like people make a choice and they say, oh, well, they lost control or they didn't know what they were doing or, no, that's just not the case. They do know what they're doing, but they're making the wrong choices. Abuse is a choice. I want everybody to know that. But when people choose to abuse another person, whether it's an adult or whether it's a child, they're making the wrong choice. And I will always speak out against this, and I will always stand up for child rights, and I will always stand up for victims' rights, because somebody's got to, and I have no problem doing it. So there you go. But this is absolutely ridiculous. They said, do abusers feel remorse? They said many abusers feel guilty. However, for pedophile, the guilt means very little. It doesn't prevent them from abusing again. They are obsessed with children and act in addictive ways. If we ask about empathy rather than guilt, we find that empathy, understanding the child's pain or point of view, is one of the key pieces in helping an abuser to stop abusing, right? And many times people don't have empathy for their children or for other people's children or for children, period. And that's the problem. They don't mind hurting the child. Like, my parents had no empathy, or they had no ability to they didn't care about the pain they were inflicting upon us. And they knew what they were doing. They were brought up on charges. They knew what they were abused, and they used to cry about the fact that they were abused. I talk all about this on my morning show. If anybody really wants to listen in on my story, right? I mean, it's I'm going through my healing journey in the morning. I'm one child abuse survivor to another, so I do a whole lot of talking about this stuff. But this is just it. Most people who abuse children have no empathy, because loving, caring parents who make a mistake and hurt their child generally don't do it again. They feel so bad that they're just like, oh my God, look what I did. I hurt my child. Now my child's upset and crying and don't trust me. And look, I've screwed up. I'm going to have to make this right. They will go double over backwards, like do triple backflips to try to get, to try to make amends. Most people that care about their children and other people's children and love children would not want to hurt a child. And if they did, they would feel so incredibly bad about it. They'd be like, oh my God, I have to fix this, correct it, and never do it again. But, when you have people who systematically tear down children, whether it's their own children or somebody else's child, or or sexually use their own children or sexually use another person's child, they don't care about those children. It's all about their needs. It's about what they want. It's about them. It's not about the child. So that's the sad part. But who pays the price? The kids do, every time. These poor children out here. So it's pathetic. It really is. They says, how can I identify if someone might be an abuser? What are some identifying features? That's what I was kind of talking about on one of my last shows. They said it's not a good idea to try and identify child molesters. Molesters consist of so many different kinds of people with different kinds of personalities and both genders. And sometimes people who seem totally normal or typical on the surface turn out to be an abuser. They said once in a while an abuser is the classic loner who doesn't seem to socialize well and so on, but that's really not most abusers. Abusers are mostly people who otherwise seem quite normal. So rather than trying to identify abusers, what's more important is identifying if there is some kind of abuse going on. It's quite interesting what they had to say there. Well, that's just it. Abusers are people that look just like everybody else. They look like you. They look like me. They drive cars down the same streets we're driving down. They work in the places we work. They shop in the stores we shop at. They generally fit in with society. That's how they're able to get a hold of your children. And that's how they get a hold of children. If they're not abusing their own children, maybe they don't have their own children, so they're abusing other people's children, but they're abusing some children. And the thing is how do they get a hold of them? Generally, they look like everybody else, right? And they're looking for the child who's vulnerable. I want everybody to know that. They're looking for the child who doesn't have anyone kind of watching out for them. They're looking for the kids who are out in the front yard by themselves. They're looking for, the kids at the malls who are just, look vulnerable. They know what they're looking for. Are you kidding me? I was a kid on the street, so I know I was almost kidnapped 5 times. So they knew, you know what I mean? They knew that I was not being looked out for. They knew, you know what I mean? They could probably tell, they could probably sense it in my actions and in just the way that I was holding myself. You know what I mean? Like, they can tell. They know vulnerable kids, and that's who they're looking for. So you parents, if you have children, you need to learn how to keep your children safe. There are lots and lots of ways. Even if you do the number one job at trying to protect your children, they're still at risk. But it's better to try to protect your children and not have them grow up in fear. You don't want your children growing up in fear. That's no good. And so it's better to get the information, get the education, and learn how to keep yourself safe, learn how to keep your children safe, and they can help themselves by keeping themselves safe, and then hopefully, this will never happen to them, right? It's very important. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I hope you can tune in. I'll be on tomorrow night, like I said, 7:30 p.m. here. Cynthia Horton is going to be joining me from the On One Accord Foundation. .org, and you can check out the show page. And the retreat's been moved to April 23rd, which is really good news because it was originally March 19th. So there's an extra month for people to sign up if they want to go, and it's in San Diego. I'd like to go. I wish I could go. I won't have the funds or the time to go. But who knows? Maybe another time, right? So have a great night, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. If you need some information, I'll try. I try to get to my messages right away, and I'm on Facebook and whatnot. I'll be around. So if you need something, get a hold of me. And thanks, Gypsy Witch, for being here. I really appreciate it. That you're my sweet friend, and I just love you so much. And everybody, look out for the kids in your own lives. Make sure that they're not being abused, and make sure that you do everything you can to protect them. And get some help. If you're a parent and you're struggling and you're thinking, oh my God, I don't want to hurt my child, but I don't know how I'm going to get help. You make sure you reach out and you get that help because your child is counting on you, to do the right thing by them. Right? They really are. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.